Welcome to Sometimes There's Side Eye, a podcast about two friends having real and unfiltered conversations about dogs and people. Listen as we talk about our lives with dogs, training, behavior, share some laughs, and a whole lot of banter. I'm Heather.
And I'm Christy.
Hey everyone, if you're just tuning in with us and you're about to listen to episode 58, but you haven't yet listened to episode 57, part 1 with Sunny Bravo, please go back and start there and then come back and join us here for episode 58. Thanks for listening.
When somebody is considering getting a service dog, what characteristics should they be looking for in that service dog? Because I'm going to be honest, I have a friend, her husband is in a wheelchair due to a spinal cord injury. They wanted a service dog for him. And they said, sometimes he falls out of his wheelchair and then the wheelchair rolls away from him. And then it's very difficult for him to crawl over and get it. And so sometimes he just lays there and waits for somebody to come home. So he said, I think I'd like a dog that can pull things naturally. So they went with a husky. And growing up with huskies, you know what a great decision that was. So he never made it to service dog level, although he can open doors. And he did one time pull his owner out of the wheelchair face first to chase a rabbit, a bunny rabbit.
Opposite of what we were going for. Yeah.
So he was maybe not the best fit for a service dog. So what should people be looking for?
I love that you brought up that they got a husky. There are what people call unicorns in breeds. Yes. So I do know personally a couple of working Siberian Huskies, Malamute, lots of other breeds, like a Dutch Shepherd. Not that she's a unicorn. We're still working through her teenage phase. I know a lot of unicorns within breeds that are not typically thought of as working service dogs or suitable for being a working service dog. Those are the breeds that were created for a variety of other purposes. Typically, they're not the most biddable, meaning they were bred to think on their own and not needing to, quote unquote, please their handler. And other times we get labs and goldens that are like, that's nice, I don't care about you. So there's unicorns within all of the breeds for the better and for the worse. I think the biggest thing to go for when you're looking for a service dog, if you're starting off with a puppy from a breeder that is ethical and reputable and breeding for all the right reasons,
love it,
I think is to be upfront with that breeder. So with that being said, a lot of breeders, if you tell them that you're looking for a service dog prospect, they will not sell because so many people puppy flip and they go through dogs and they don't keep them and then they don't return them to the breeder, even if there's a contract.
Oh, I get what you're saying. Because if the dog washes out, then they absolutely must have a service dog. And so if the prospective puppy washes out and isn't that right match, that I had never thought about that, but it makes I can see it from both sides. I will say that.
Yes,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But so if you are buying a puppy from a reputable breeder and you have a contract and the dog washes out, then it is typically your contract reads that dog will go back to the breeder.
Yes. Yeah. Or unless you and the breeder decide to rehome it correctly. So that's what happened with mine and Camo's breeder, who is, I love her so much. I was very upfront with her that I was looking for a potential replacement for Chrysanthemum, but that I also wanted to do sports with this puppy. And I was very upfront with her and said, if for whatever reason she does not work out, or if she does all the things that I need her to do, but she doesn't enjoy it, I'm going to keep her. She's got a forever home with me, whether she's a service dog or not. So that's if you go with a reputable breeder. You want to make sure that they know that what you're looking for in this puppy, because you want to make sure that if you're going for a breed that is more suitable for service work, typically labs, golden retrievers, then there's the debate on whether it's a border collie or a rough collie. If German Shepherd's in there, it's kind of a little toss up here and there.
We have some Rottweilers in there now and again.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. I know of 2 Rottweilers that are fabulous service dogs. So I think regardless of the breed you go with, you want to make sure that that puppy has some kind of drive that it works for you and your lifestyle. Meaning, if you don't like slobbery fingers, you may not want a puppy that's like super highly food driven
Yeah.
and only food driven. If you're okay with throwing treats instead of putting it hand to mouth, you might want to get a puppy that is okay sniffing and searching the ground for that treat so you don't have those slobbery fingers. If you get a puppy that has no food drive and has a good toy drive, that could work for a lot of behavior training and task training. You just got to be creative with it possibly later on. But if you get a puppy that has zero interest in food, doesn't care about toys, and doesn't really have any
Ooh,
handler focus,
it's an uphill
probably
battle.
pass. Yep, you should probably
Yeah.
pass on that puppy.
Yep, it is
And
an uphill battle.
it is very difficult to find a breeder that will be okay with you hiring an outside trainer to go in and test these puppies.
Assess. Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Um, I have seen a lot of breeders say, no, no, my trainer already assessed them. This puppy is fabulous.
Hmm.
And so I've asked my clients, okay, ask them to send you a video doing certain exercises, and the breeders won't. And so
Yeah.
if there's any kind of red flags, stay away.
Mm.
Then there's the puppies that are coming from rescue or shelters. When they're a little younger, it can be a better option, meaning if they're in that 8 to 16-week mark, it can be a better possibility than if you get a dog that's in its teen phase or the I don't want it anymore phase or age, just because there's less likelihood that they've gone through some kind of trauma that could be a potential for fallout later on in
Mm.
training when you've already become attached to this dog. There's also people that get adult dogs from shelters and rescues, and like Jackson, turn out amazing and
Mhm.
perfect for that person's needs. And then there's some that they start working the dog from the shelter within a week of bringing them home without giving this dog time to decompress. And so
Yeah.
those dogs, a lot of times, don't turn out because they weren't even given an opportunity to decompress. And so the biggest thing is if you're getting a puppy, make sure it's evaluated and assessed by a person that knows what they're doing, a professional trainer that knows what to look for, preferably a service dog trainer. And if you're getting it from a shelter, same thing. See if a trainer will go out and assess a puppy from either a foster home or a shelter.
I feel like although the stakes are so much higher when you're looking for a service dog prospect,
Mhm.
young, old, whatever age, a lot of the guidance that you just gave is what people should abide by just when they're looking for a dog.
Yes. Yeah,
So
yeah.
you really want to take best practices when thinking
Yes.
about your future dog, and
Mhm.
then if it is a dog that you need to utilize in service work, that you are then putting that on top of the general foundation of what you're looking for in a dog and
Yes.
sort of work up from there. And
Yeah.
I wish that more people utilized good dog trainers when they
Mm.
were thinking about their next dog.
Oh,
And I want to normalize that.
100%.
Yeah.
So much. To kind of round out what to look for, people need to keep in mind if they have small children in the home, a herding breed
Mm.
may not be best,
Oh,
whether that's a
yeah.
pet
Yeah.
or a service dog. So they need to
Yeah.
keep that breed's characteristics and instincts and genetics in mind with who they live with, where they frequent. Again, just as a pet owner or as a service dog handler, and then what they need that dog to do. Because like you have your babies asleep on the couch right now.
Hmm.
They're okay kind of hanging out. If somebody gets a border collie and is more of a homebody person, maybe they can't physically get out to exercise their dog or give their dog walks, may not be the best match
Yeah.
of breed.
Yeah.
So breed selection is another huge, huge thing.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And I will also say, so Jackson, before, when I was just fostering him and not adopting him, only like 2 or 3 weeks into fostering him, they asked if I thought he would be a good perspective for a service dog. And I said yes, because at the time I did think he was much more social with people than he actually is. But he's very task oriented. Like he loves to do tasks. He loves routine. And I thought he's pretty smart. He's like a handful, but he's smart. So I think he could do it. But also the rescue asked me 3 weeks into having a 1-year-old dog. I'm not certified in this. I don't know about the
A dog
training.
trainer, you just play one on TV.
I just hang out with dogs. So also keep that in mind. Like the rescues don't know what all goes into this unless that's their deal. Like there are some rescues that pull specific dogs because that's what they do.
Yeah.
But if you're just going to your average rescue, like know that it's someone like me who's like, well, yeah, maybe, I think. Could be.
It seems like a good one, definitely.
It seems like he should get out of my house soon. Yes.
Well, I was like, okay, you say that, but I was thinking like their primary purpose is move dogs, homeless dogs into homes. So and that's not a cut on anybody. That's just reality. And so you kind of have to be like, okay, if I'm looking for a service dog prospect, who's my advocate? Who's looking out for me to make sure that I'm not getting emotional about it, which is important, and that I have somebody looking out for my best interests in this dog who is going to be an integral part of my existence going forward. And like, who best to do that but somebody who actually is educated on dog training and service dogs? Just saying.
Yes, and I definitely would have welcomed a trainer into. I told the rescue, I mean, I don't know a ton about what this person needs, but it does seem like this dog could be trained to do tasks. But also, like, bring somebody with you to meet the dog that is an expert.
There you go. Yeah, that's very true. Very true.
So it sounds like age can vary depending on the situation, depending on the dog. I think that's probably a
budget.
fair very good point.
And budget.
And budget.
Yeah.
Very good point.
Yeah. So like a county has free adoption days, and some people can't maybe afford a $2,000 or $3,000 dog cost up front, and they really need something to help them. And so that is what fits in their budget. As long as they keep in mind there's food costs and medical care and all the other things, but budget is a huge part of it for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's a very good point. So are there specific tools that you use in training a service dog? And I feel like that's just like an open-ended question, but here we go.
Yes. So I'll speak for myself first.
Perfect.
I use food first and foremost. That's a lie. I use voice, movement.
Oh,
and food.
Yes.
For me personally. So if I've had puppies here as young as 8 weeks to do just foundations, and then for some to just start, that would hopefully be going into service dog training. Some just pets, some both. But I've had pups as young as 8 weeks here, and I don't, unless the owner wants a collar on their puppy, I don't really put a collar on their puppy when they're with me here at my home. And so the 3 tools that I use are my voice, my movement to get the puppy to move with me, and food. I do not put a leash on that puppy, because if I can't, quote unquote, control that puppy with my energy and my enthusiasm, that puppy's not going to care about me whether there's a leash attached or not. It doesn't matter what you put around that dog's neck, back, hips, that puppy doesn't care about you. So I try to make myself as exciting as possible by using movement and excited voice and intonations, and a variety of food, and then using food movement, meaning I throw behind the dog, I throw to the side of the dog to encourage that puppy to engage with me. All I'm looking for initially is just engagement. And so I don't really use anything other than those 3 things. Once the puppy is past that point and is willing to engage with me pretty regularly, I will then use leashes, dragging, to just add some weight onto that collar or harness, whichever one the handler or owner prefers. I try to encourage harnesses because I prefer to work on a harness with whatever age dog and teach them leash pressure, not in a punishing way where it's painful for the dog physically, but in a cause and effect way, meaning if you put pressure on, I'm going to try and encourage you to come back with me, and then we're going to go forward together.
Yes.
And then if there's pressure, you're going to come back towards me, and then we'll both go forward together. So it can be a little bit repetitive initially, but I have worked with so many puppies that when they, in excitement, hit the end of the leash, they immediately look at me like, I'm I'm coming right back. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's instead of a look of fear or not even looking at me, it's a, oh, should I come back and do a hand touch, or are you wanting me to circle around you? Are we doing, what are we doing? So I'll use a harness primarily. And then as teens and adult dogs, or as they age into those older, if it's for service dog training, it may be a harness, collar, or leash, and there may be a gentle leader added if the person has mobility issues. With Camo, I don't know, outside of that, with clients, I only use the collar or harness for my clients. I will not work with clients that want to use an e-collar because I personally don't find it necessary. When I first started out, when I was transitioning from aggression to puppy cases, I had a client that had a deaf dog and he had been using a vibrate collar just to get the dog's attention. So we transitioned from using that to a laser beam, which I know is also a
Well,
little,
no,
Cool.
it depends on how you use it. It can be a
Yeah.
very useful tool if you are
Yeah.
careful.
so this dog was a beagle. He was deaf.
Oh my
So he
Lord.
was not obsessive with the laser light. He knew the laser light meant come touch my hand and get food. So
Brilliant.
we were able to take it off of the vibrate collar. But I feel that you should, and I'm getting to that point with Camo. It's going to be a while. She's just barely going to turn 2, but I feel a, I'm probably going to get so much hate for this, but I don't really care. I feel that if you have a fully trained service dog,
Mm-hmm.
you should be able to go out. And if you've done the relationship correctly and you've done the training correctly, you should be able to go out and have forgotten your leash, your collar, your harness, your treats, your toys, and it just be you and your dog.
Mm,
If your dog is naked next to you and you have an episode, can your dog task?
mm.
Because if you're relying on any tool, treats included, toys included, movement included, exciting voice, you don't have any of those if you're having any kind of episode. You
Yeah.
can't access those. Is your dog going to work for you? And is your dog going to remain engaged with you and not distracted by the environment?
Mhm.
That's where I personally stand.
And it's a high bar. I would
Very
say
high.
you
Yeah.
would agree with that statement. I mean, that's a high bar.
100%. It's a very high bar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chrysanthemum has been trained to that level. She's starting to go downhill now because she's 9
Well,
and
she's
she's
9,
in the
so
retiring. She's
every girl
retiring.
needs to retire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in her prime, I want to say, I think she was 4 or 5 years old. We were out camping. I had let her out to go potty off leash because we were in our campsite and she had an excellent recall, and a bunny ran by. And I said, don't even think about it. And she looked at me and she said, okay. And she sat right down. That dog didn't even have a collar on because we were out for a quick potty break.
Hmm.
So that is kind of the level that people should at least aspire to get to is,
Yes.
can you work naked with nothing other than you and your
Mhm.
dog's relationship? That's
Yeah.
it.
And
It's a lot. It's a lot.
that's a
Yeah.
lot. And I would think too, I like how you said that is something to aspire to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of ingredients in the sauce to make that
So many.
because you have to have the right dog, you have to
Mhm.
have a trainer who has the ability, you have to have certain abilities to be able to carry through on everything. You have to have the dog's genetics. You have to, I mean, there's like so many things that go into that. But if that is the bar that you have set, then at least you know what you're working towards.
Yes. That, and not only does the dog part have so many ingredients, but the human end has to
Yeah.
have so
Yeah.
many ingredients. So, and it's not even to say that somebody that is immobile cannot get to that level. It's just, how much are you willing to put that work in?
Mm.
And how much patience do you have? And do you know when you and your dog need a break from that training session?
Yeah.
Because I see both people and trainers working these dogs for an hour to 2 hours at a time every
Mhm.
day. And then the dog goes back in a crate and they're not engaged with and allowed to just be a dog. And then I see people that allow their dog 2 minutes of training a day and have the best relationship with these dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And they're allowed to just be silly little cuckoo banana heads the rest of the day. And their relationship is incredible. So it just really depends on how much time and effort you're willing to put into your relationship with the dog, how much time and effort into the training with the dog, and getting the dog that suits your lifestyle
the right
and
dog. Yeah.
can do what you need that dog to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And also to say, again, it's to aspire to that. So if you see a handler team out and maybe they are not at that level, that doesn't mean that they're not working towards that level. That's something to aspire to. And dogs, just like people, have bad days too. And so if you like are like, that team seems to be struggling. They might be. They really might have put in a lot of work, but maybe today is not the day to watch them because it is a struggle bus day.
100%. And that, with all of that being said, I am not in any way, shape, or form trying to say that I am better than anyone or perfect.
Oh no.
No. Chamomile and I are on the struggle bus right now and have been for about the last 3 months. So I have slowed her training in public way, way down and just letting her be a teenage puppy. We do maybe 2 outings a month for public access. And we only do it in settings that I know she is 100% solid. So we just did our first restaurant yesterday in like 6 months.
Wow.
Because she struggles hard in restaurants. She thinks being under the table and people approaching our wait staff approaching to ask for refills or if the food is delicious, she finds that very unnerving. Being underneath and kind of almost cornered. And so we've worked really hard on that on pet friendly patios, and she nailed it yesterday. She was great. Awesome. I'm not going to go work her for another 2 weeks because I want that to be a very long lasting impression. But I feel that that's where some dogs struggle with something and the handlers try to work through it almost too hard and too fast.
Over immerse. Like,
like just
hyper focus on that.
A break. And it's like, no, you're work the other direction. Work on something that's super fun. We did Fast Cat a couple weeks ago. She had a week break. We did the zoo and a restaurant, and that was it. And I took her for a very successful outing where it physically tired her out at walking at the zoo. And then we went and had pizza at a fairly empty restaurant. And we came home, and she's been chilling all day today. So it's definitely not that we are not going through struggles ourselves. I don't know, honestly, that she will ever reach what Chrysanthemum was. I think she'll get close, but and no dogs are the same. She'll never get to be what Chrysanthemum was, but she'll be great in her own right. And if she doesn't want to be a service dog, I'm not gonna push her to be a service dog. So
I think it's really interesting that we talked about like the right dog and everything. And this is not to take anything away from Camo, but I think the general public would think, oh, of course, a shepherd would be a great service dog and perfect. And then a standard poodle, what? And that right there just says to you, just because you think you know doesn't mean that it's gonna come. Christy's making a face at me. She doesn't.
No, I agree with you, but I'm thinking about service dogs I've come across. And I've actually come across quite a few standard poodles.
Well, I think standard poodles are amazing, but like the general public does not think, oh, let me get a standard poodle and have them be a working dog. They don't. I've seen so many amazing standard poodles do sports and all sorts of things. So it doesn't surprise me at all, but I just meant from like a general public standpoint. People are not going to be like, oh, let me pick a golden retriever or a standard poodle. You know, they're always going to go that golden way. And it's like, that might not be the right thing.
Sunny, have you ever been hired to train a service dog that you recommended to discontinue their training?
Yes, twice. Same person.
Oh, can we hear about it?
Sure. I won't say genders just to keep it neutral, and I won't say breed. Same person hired me for training for their second service dog. Their first service dog had gotten attacked and was having a difficult time kind of reintegrating back into public around other dogs that it saw. And so their second dog that they brought in had been evaluated by a trainer, deemed as top notch. And this dog struggled heavily with separation anxiety, struggled heavily with
Oh,
being in the crate. And so that was something that they did not want to work on. And so the anxiety from the dog kind of kept building because they were left alone while this person went to work. And it started out just in their home, and it then led to there was some destruction happening and going on. And so it led to a specific heavy duty crate, brand not
yes.
named.
Yes.
So, for very anxious dogs.
Mm-hmm.
And the dog injured itself on its teeth, or its teeth got injured on the crate and ended up breaking out of said crate.
No.
Yes. And they wanted to continue trying to work in public. The dog was decent in public. Tasks were okay in the home. It was still pretty young, definitely before a year and a half. I want to say it was maybe a year or so, a year of age. And the biggest thing that the dog struggled with in public was reactivity to other dogs.
Oh.
But I don't personally feel that it was the dog's fault, meaning I repetitively told said owner, don't let your dog focus on the other dogs. Let them look for 2, 3 seconds, redirect. I was ignored, and the reactivity kept building and building and building until there were major explosions, rearing up on hind legs. I said, this is not going to work, not only because the dog is struggling with some big feelings, but you're not listening to me.
Yeah. Which makes you not a match as a trainer at that point.
No,
Yeah.
no. I have a very hard time, not with people pleasing, but with really wanting a person with disabilities to succeed and really wanting to help the dog that's struggling with whatever. I really want to help them. And so they did not take the dog out of public access.
Okay.
They did. Long story short, they got another dog. Same issues essentially.
Oh no.
Oh.
Also evaluated by a different trainer, different breed, different trainer, but dog struggled with the same issues. And that's when I said, okay, it is not the dogs. It is the environment and the person.
Something's not meshing here.
Yeah. And that's probably the one that it wasn't anything that the dog could have been fixed from, because it was the person not wanting to put in the effort. And so that one hurt hard because I felt horrible for the dogs because they kept all three dogs. And so the initial dog started getting like the other two. And it just sad situation for all three pups.
And then they don't have their service dog. Like, that's just terrible all the way around.
Oh no, they do.
They got a fourth one.
No, they're just
they're
working
using okay.
the two back and forth.
Okay.
If they know that they're not going into a dog heavy environment, they'll take the second one. If they know that they're going into an environment that is likely to have more dogs, they'll take the third one. So, yeah.
Wow.
Interesting. Okay.
And I've had to fire people that wanted to hire me. So not even really fired. I just didn't accept the job because they needed to take their dog with them for a family reunion. All the good things.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's just not.
That's not what you're there for. Yeah.
Yeah. We want to make sure that people, whomever they are, that need a service dog have access to be able to have that service dog. And it's not for me to judge, right?
Right.
But we also want to be respectful of that line and making sure that if we say we need it, that we really do need it.
Yeah. Well, these people were upfront and said they don't have disabilities. They just don't want to pay for their dog. No, they were very forthcoming.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, I can respect the honesty.
Yeah, I had no problem saying no to them.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I am somebody who will defend my friends at all costs.
Yeah.
And it becomes this defense mechanism of like, hey, I need to defend my friends who actually need this.
Yeah.
And should be allowed to have this without any issues.
Yeah.
Like they shouldn't be second guessed. They shouldn't have dogs attacking their service dog in public because another dog isn't trained but has a badge. And I think that's where, that's why Heather and I are so passionate about it. And we've talked about it on a couple episodes now, because we don't want our friends who have that access and need that access to have a hard time with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's part of what makes you be able to live life.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now that my husband works from home a whole lot more, I utilize him a lot, especially in this transition period where I know Chrysanthemum can't do all day. I took her to the zoo last week and she looked at me like, "Are you kidding me? You want me to be out here for 6 hours? Are you fucking kidding me? I am almost 9 years old. Take me home." So she's starting to be where more than like 4 or 5 hours, she's starting to get tired. And I understand that. And so on the times where I know it's going to be hard for her, or if it's going to be too hot or too cold, I'll leave her. And if I know it's not an easy environment for Camo, or she's been on one of her many rest breaks,
Yeah.
if my husband's able to, I just utilize my husband or a family member or friend, because I'm not going to force my almost 9-year-old girl to just deal with it and suck it up. And I'm not going to push my puppy into a situation that she's not ready for and make her more scared of, that environment or situation. So I know coping mechanisms for certain things that I have, but other things there isn't a coping mechanism because it's a physical issue. There's not really an alternative for it aside from like another human being. And so it can definitely be a struggle though when you see, so like for example, we were at the zoo and I was meeting my friend there yesterday and I had Camel and she had a great day. But as we were leaving, they have those pillars out in front of the Phoenix Zoo, and so we had the dogs get on the pillars, and we were taking pictures of them, and we still had a hold of their leash. But this woman, and I think maybe her mom or older sister, came over and were just watching. They were a respectable distance away. They weren't taking photos or anything. And then as we're just letting the dogs kind of let out some energy and be a little bit more silly because we had finished the zoo, they go, "Oh, I wish I could have brought my dog with me." And I said, "Just so you know, this is only service dogs allowed." She goes, "I don't care. If I want my dog here, I'm going to bring it." And I said, "Well, good luck getting past the park rangers here." I said, "Because they are very stringent." And I said, "This is one of the most," I didn't say this, I'm telling you guys, that is one of the best places in Arizona to go where you pretty much don't have to worry about dogs that are being passed off as service dogs, because those park rangers have seen so many legitimate teams pass through that they know the behavior to look for, and they know the behavior that is a little bit red flag. But yeah, so people just wanting to bring their dogs there because they see somebody else with a dog. I've learned not to get angry at it. I used to get so angry before, and I was like, why am I expelling all this energy on these random strangers that I don't even know?
It doesn't affect their life one bit if we're angry at them.
Yeah. Oh, that's so hard. That's really hard. I do agree with Christy. I think an element to it is when you have somebody that you care about in your life and they're affected by it, then you become like this champion of that thing for them, right? And our friends, Cindy has had a service dog attacked, and it's, had major impact on how she was able to live her life. And it just like, take that moment to think, you just wanting to take Fluffy to the store with you could make it that someone with their service dog can't go anywhere for 6 months because their dog is messed up.
Yeah. Chrysanthemum was bit when she
Massive.
was a year and a half old by a black Great Dane.
Oh.
She was then bit 2 more times, separate times, different years, by other black Great Danes. And I don't know if black Great Danes just don't like my dog or what it is, but she is a unicorn in the sense that she has no ill will towards any dog, other black Great Danes that have friends that have black Great Danes. And she's one of the very few lucky dogs that has been able to recover and bounce back very quickly. I can tell you right now, if Camo was attacked, I don't know that she would get to the point where she could work in public. She's just sensitive dog, and so incredibly different than Camo or than Chrysanthemum that, the people bringing their pets and then they might just get a fine, if that, and we're stuck with the vet bills,
Yep.
possibly behavior specialist bills, any actual veterinary treatment, the trauma to us losing our working partner that allows us to have, independence outside of the home. And I think people just really don't think about it. And again, it's you don't know what you don't know. And I just
Yeah.
wish there was kind of a you turn 18, you get your driver's license. We're also going to put you through a service animal course.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kind of just
Can
here's
we
what life is like.
can we have like an education program somehow, some way to like teach people and just have them think about it a little bit? Just a
Like in
little.
high school, like driver's ed
Yeah.
and service animal.
Yeah.
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 Huh.
Yeah, it's there are some people that will go to elementary schools and high schools and kind of talk to students. I've done that a total of 6 or 7 times in the last few years, but it's not the kids, it's
Yeah.
the adults,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, it's hard.
I'm thinking if we can get them trained early, then they'll grow up into adults who
Yes.
hopefully remain trained,
I
like our
mean,
dog.
Yeah.
We trained
Yeah.
them as puppies and we hope it continues through to adulthood.
Exactly.
when we used
Perfect.
to do the anti-dog fighting education, I used to always say, I don't want the adults, give me the kids, let me plant the seeds.
Yeah. Yep.
Let me plant the seeds there
Yeah.
because you never know when a little water's going to come down and
Yeah.
it's going to make an impression,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. For
Hmm.
sure. Yeah. Kids are almost never the offenders of the drive-by pettings. It's always the adults.
Yeah.
And if it is a
I can believe
child,
that.
they're like under 3 years old. They
Well,
don't
they
know any
don't
better,
know.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they're baby.
Is there anything else that is important in regards to service dogs or their training that you want to make sure that we mention?
Yes. I think something that's not really thought about is that while dog savvy people understand that a service dog is typically for just one person, there are some families that utilize that same service dog for a parent and child or husband and wife. And while there's no law against that, I think ethically and morally we need to look at is that burning the dog out too fast to where, yes, it might work for two or more people in the home, or possibly even two children in the home, but are we overworking the dog to the point where they're not getting any time to be a dog? And two, are we working the dog so much that instead of having a dog that could work for you for 7 to 9 years, depending on them and the lifestyle that they're living, are we creating a dog that's only able to work for 2 to 3 years because of
Mm.
burnout? And are you willing to take on that potential stress and expense on bringing another dog in? So a lot of that's not the norm that I see people using one service dog for two people in the home, but some people do. And I think the other thing that people that are just getting into service dogs is, do you have a pet dog in the home?
Mm.
Because some organizations will not provide you a service dog, whether it's at cost
Oh.
or free of charge, if you have any other animals in the home. They might if there's a cat or two, but if there's other dogs in the home, there's a lot of organizations that will not give you a service dog. Again, whether you've paid for it or it's given to you. If somebody has pet dogs or possibly a retired or washed service dog in the home, and they're bringing a puppy or teenage or adult dog into the home to be their service dog, there needs to be separation. There needs
Mm.
to be some sort of, okay, now it's time to play with your furry brothers and sisters, and now it's time with the human. I find that people get really frustrated when they have a multi-dog household or multi-animal household, but primarily multi-dog household, and one of those is a service dog or service dog in training, because the dog doesn't care as much about the human as dogs that are only dogs. And that is because the value has been spent and created with the other dogs or animals in the home. And then the human gets frustrated and they're saying the dog doesn't want to work or can't focus in public. And they need to remember that they have to build that value in the relationship, whether there's one dog in the home or seven dogs in the home.
Mm.
If you are not making yourself exciting and important and valuable to that dog, you might as well just have brought another pet into your home. And
Mm-hmm.
that is a huge, huge one. And it's not that they can't play with their furry siblings. There has to be some kind of separation between a verbal cue or phrase and bonding with them, and then bonding with the human in and outside of the home. And I think a lot of people don't even think about that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But I'm also someone who treats a new puppy like a full-time job because I want to bond with them. And so,
even if it takes a year.
Yeah.
Look, some relationships are harder than others, Christy.
Yes.
I'm just saying. I spoke very nicely about her today.
She's a good girl.
She's getting there. Anyway, well, I have just enjoyed this so much.
Yes, I've learned so much too.
I know.
Thanks. I'm glad.
We appreciate you coming on, and we appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
If you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe, rate, and share us wherever you get your podcasts. Also, come on over to Instagram and engage with us at Sometimes There's Side Eye.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Talk to you next time.
Bye.
Bye.